Here's real-life footage of a woman being attacked by a wild animal, and in the comments of this video, you'll find several men laughing and celebrating it. Celebrating the death of an innocent woman they don't know and has done absolutely nothing to them. Men in different parts of the world have started just walking up to women in the street and punching them in the face.
A man came up and punched me in the face.
I just got punched in the face. He goes, sorry, and then punches me.
Post-COVID, it started happening a lot to friends of mine.
Now it's just like kind of all happening again these past few days.
Came up and punched me in the head.
Men ejaculating into women's food and drinks to make them sick even while they have STDs. And do you remember Junko Furuta? That poor Japanese girl who was abducted and brutally tortured in unspeakable ways and was raped over 500 times by men and teenage boys for 44 days straight? It's said to be the worst case in the country's post-war history, and her body was discovered inside of a concrete-filled drum. Well, males on TikTok and Twitter have recently started mocking her and making memes about her. Men show how truly evil they are, and how much they really don't see women and girls as human beings, then turn around and have the audacity to claim it's quote-unquote misandry for women to start resenting them for how they treat us.
Because men can tell when you're scared. They know they make us uncomfortable and they like having that power. That's why I hate men, and that's why I think they're bad people. Just like how I found it very easy to say I hate men is the same way they find it very easy to oppress us and create an environment where we live in fear every day. And I think it's fair to hate people who are the reason why you live in fear for your life every single day. Because I think the mistake a lot of women be making is like feeling like they have to like constantly disclaim that they don't hate men. I think it's very okay for oppressed people to have resentment towards their oppressor. Let me just make that one clear. Any group of people who are oppressed by another group of people, within that group of oppressed people, there will be some who may have sympathy towards their oppressors. There'll be some in that oppressed group who will have resentment towards their oppressors. And there'll be some in that group who have more of a neutral stance towards their oppressors. Everybody in that group who all feel differently, you guys are allowed to have your feelings. Okay? I'm not here to radicalize anybody because most people don't have the range and they'll never be able to do it how I do it anyway. But we need to hold space for the women who hate men, because it's okay to hate people that kill you. I think that sounds fair in my opinion.
That was Chidera Egeru, also known as the Slumflower, and I fully agree with everything she just said. Misandry is about as real as heterophobia or classism against the rich or ableism against non-disabled people. Men's violence against women has become so normalized that we only see them as statistics, that is, if we see them at all. But when a woman shows any negative response to it, she is labeled as being against all men, and this gets so sensationalized that we have to busy ourselves being apologetic and even end up sugarcoating feminism and walk on eggshells to avoid hurting men's feelings. But men never do that with women. The use of the word misandry is another form of darvo. Feminists are accused of man-hating, which shifts the attention to men who are then seen as victims.
I got this book in 2021, and I am not even halfway through it. And every time I pick it back up, I remember why it has taken me so long to pick back up. This book is about women's history, and it starts all the way back in hunter-gatherer times, which that's a whole nother thing. It's very interesting. From there, it goes to when the population of the world began to expand even more, and the world was in matriarchy. There was only female leaders, and there was only female gods and deities. The earliest known religion was a female goddess, if you will. So basically, this matriarchal world where women were leaders, women were literally worshipped as goddesses walking on earth, that all fell when collectively we started to piece together how babies were made. That discovery that pregnancy and birth was not something magical that women just did, it was something that could be done to women. Then came the rise of patriarchy. Then came the rise of father gods. And now we are here to the fall of woman, which is this chapter. And this is an excerpt about child brides, all right? And she says here that this was recorded as late as 1921, which was over 100 years ago, but child brides are not a thing of the past. That still happens today. This is a massive trigger warning. I wish I hadn't read this, and I'm only reading it again because I feel like it's important. As late as 1921, the British government official census of India recorded that 3,200,000 child brides had died during the previous 12 months, under circumstances recorded by British Army doctors. Quote, A. Aged 9, day after marriage. Left femur dislocated, pelvis crushed out of shape, flesh hanging in shreds. B. Age 10, unable to stand, bleeding profusely, flesh much lacerated. C. Age 9, so completely ravished as to be almost beyond surgical repair. Her husband had 2 other living wives and spoke very fine English. I. Age 7, living with husband, died in great agony after 3 days. M. Age 10, crawled to hospital on her hands and knees, has never been able to stand erect since her marriage. Also, later in that chapter, she talks about how a lot of the child brides were also FGM victims, and that the husband would wear the blade, or sometimes just the really sharp rock he would use to cut her open before raping her, would wear it bloodied around town, like as a trophy. It absolutely fills me with rage when I read things like that and I hear about things like that, and I am once again just faced with the knowledge of the reality that the torture that women and girls have faced at the hands of men, and men have the fucking audacity to cry misandry and to really say things like misandry is just as bad as misogyny. Show me anywhere in the world ever recorded in history where it was not only acceptable but like a traditional practice for grown women to marry little boys and rape them until their bones were crushed and they were unable to stand.
Provide at least 3 examples of a man being gang essayed by women. Show me 1 instance of an adult woman trafficking adult men. List all the anti-man laws women have drafted. Find a sorority that regularly assaults men during their parties. When I start seeing men with melted faces from gender-based acid attacks, that's when you can say misandry is a real thing, because that's what hatred is. It's not just someone saying I hate men on the internet or making memes mocking men. Most women who say they hate men don't even actually hate men. They just hate that men reinforce patriarchy. We hate sexual predators, domestic abusers, men who defend monsters from accountability, men who catcall women and harass their colleagues, men who say sexist slurs and treat the women in their life like property, men who don't respect bodily autonomy, men who enforce gender roles and toxic masculinity, men who deny women their rights and opportunities, and men who are silent in the face of injustice because silence is complicity. These women don't hate men, they hate misogyny. However, the Venn diagram of men and people I just listed above looks too much like a circle for any woman to live comfortably. If you want to call women's rightful anger and frustrations at this, hatred or misandry, then our hatred is reactionary. Men hated us first. Even if every feminist or every woman on earth hated men, it still wouldn't compare to the way men hate us. You can come crying to me when women's social and political power extends to the point that men live in a world where it's illegal to show their faces or get an education, where they grow up living in such fear that they consider it to be normal, feel that they deserve it, and even interpret the sexual violence committed against them as love or affection. Until then, spare me, the women-hating men is just as bad. Bullshit. Misogyny had taken the lives of millions of women, while quote-unquote misandry only hurts men's egos online. Here we have men vandalizing a wall filled with posters of missing women and calling it a war on men. This is one of the many reasons why the word misandry should not even exist, and why so many feminists should stop calling themselves misandrists, ironically or unironically. Don't give it a name. Misandry is an internet word Gen Z men made up. By claiming we're misandrists, we're just legitimizing the word, and as a result, legitimizing it as a real oppression. Words are a powerful tool to weaponize political movements. This is why men now have movements such as men's rights activism against misandry. I know feminists have good intentions about reclaiming the word, but please don't further validate men's fictionary oppression. The mass gaslighting of women that have experienced trauma at the hands of men by therapists into no longer quote-unquote hating men, women who are seen as cured when they stop being wary of men and ignore their intuition. Unfortunately, there are still people that think women are crazy and irrational for noticing how widespread male degeneracy is, and think that feminists are worse for pointing out misogyny than the actual men committing it.